Okay, I'm back. And we were bringing in line certain ideas from Rudolf Steiner, one of which was English speakers are instinctively in the consciousness soul in their life of rights, and the other idea is that the life of rights is entirely earthly. And then the rules in heaven are moral rules, and on the earth there are sort of moral rules at work at all as well, but there is another aspect here. And we're going to get into this next in the life of rights. Now, some people may know this, but the fact is I went to law school. And I ended up being a member of the bar in Montana and also the bar in Colorado. And life circumstances led me through certain kind of changes. I worked as a clerk on the Montana Supreme Court for 6 months at one point. And then trying to put together a marriage that was failing. I went with my former wife and we moved to California, and at that point I had enough of the law after my experience on the court, which I found very disillusioning, and decided not to continue to have a career in law, and also avoided taking the California bar and stuff. I had been interested in the law because it was sort of an idealistic impulse on my part and wasn't viable anymore. And of course we're looking at 1968, 69, and of course that's when the war in Vietnam is heating up and the anti-war movement is growing and all those things are going on a political level. Anyway, the first day of law school, which was, I think, was in September of 65 for me, one of the professors, if not more than one professor, made this very profound statement, and it ought to be one of the basic things that it's in every civics course and certainly gets repeated constantly in questions of public life, if we actually had questions of public life that were more than just superficial. And what was said was that we needed to understand that the law was not moral. The law was the least socially accepted thing. And that's what generated the law. People created laws where they created, this sort of lower border. And if you went below that lower border, you were considered doing something illegal or violating the law. And the higher sort of border is morality. And of course, if we do thorough, and look at civil disobedience, and then Gandhi, of course, and Martin Luther King and all the rest of that, we realize that people do bring the moral into our public life, but they generally bring it in opposition to what governments do. Governments tend to act out of what's legal, and individuals tend to act out of what they conceive of as moral. And of course today there's a lot of confusion about that. You have people from the Christian right going around, talking about God's law. They want to take their idea of morality and put it all over the rest of us, using the vehicles of the processes by which laws are created, and insist that everybody follow those rules. And of course, in discussions about capital punishment and discussions about abortion, there's this conflict that arises as people try to sort their way through these different things. And these are not easy questions. And this is precisely, to a certain degree, why Rudolf Steiner says that English speakers are instinctively in the conscious soul in their life of rights. Because in the life of rights questions, we're forced to wake up. to our moral nature. Now, what does he mean by the conscious soul? Well, in the book Theosophy, he says the consciousness soul is basically that aspect of the soul which seeks to unite itself with the true and the good, which are aspects of the eternal. Once more, the consciousness soul is that aspect of the soul that seeks to unite itself with the true and the good, that are aspects of the eternal. So in the dynamics of the life of rights, human beings are forced to face questions in their biographies, and these questions cause them to have to confront consciousness soul questions, and we do have this urge, we do have this wish, we have this desire that our public life bears some relationship to our moral life. And of course, since we don't understand what I was told the first day in law school about the lower boundary of what the law was about, the least acceptable, socially acceptable behaviors, or what the law was defining. So, for example, let me give some concrete ideas about this. There are, in a way, three kinds of laws. The ones we're most aware of are laws passed by legislatures. So, in the creation of the Constitution itself, you have fundamental law created by certain people, and you have a general agreement through electoral processes where everybody says, okay, yeah, we'll accept this as our Constitution. And then this Constitution, in fact, creates different branches of government, including the legislative branch, and it says, well, okay, the legislative branch can create laws. And the balance of powers say, well, okay, the executive branch can stop laws by its veto capacities. And then the judicial branch wakes up at a certain point in time and realizes that it can stop laws by saying that they're not consistent with the Constitution, that the highest law of the land is the Constitution, and that you can't violate the Constitution with the laws you create in the legislature. Now, the Constitution itself says some very interesting things about the law. It talks about sort of accepting, in a general way, the jurisprudence ideas. I'm not going to get into where it says this in the Constitution because it's kind of technical in a couple of places, but basically what happened was that the jurisprudence ideas, or the legal concepts of English law, were accepted through the Constitution to be part of American law. Well, what did this include? Well, this included what we call sometimes stare decisis, or the authority of the court to decide a certain thing is true, okay, in terms of the law. Now, I want to give some examples of this so it can be clear. There are all kinds of rules governing contracts between individuals. And by and large, most of these rules are not created by legislatures. They were created by courts in trying to deal with the nature of contractual relationships and how to make that work. I have to pause here and come back.